The all-new 2024 F-150 is right around the corner, and in this video, we're going to tell you everything that we're hoping for in this new generation for the Ford F-150. What's up, guys? Mitchell Watts with Town & Country TV, and today we've got a very cool TCcustoms F-150 that we're going to use to point out our wishes for this next-gen truck. First thing, let's talk about the styling for the new body style truck. I am really hoping that Ford is going to give us an updated style, obviously on the front and the back. My guess is this 24 model year is going to be what they call a mid-cycle refresh, which means it's not going to be a clean sheet overhaul and a build from a brand new perspective on the F-150. Keep in mind that this generation F-150 started out as a 2021 model, and now as we're looking at this is a 2023 model year. And so since the 21 model year was pretty much a completely ground up brand new vehicle, I think they said something crazy like 80 or 90% of all of the body panels were different on the 21 versus the 2020 model. I'm expecting a little bit better look on the front end. This is kind of crazy. We're talking off of an F-150 XLT, and as you can see, you've got this carbonized gray grille that comes on all of the XLT Sport Appearance packages. It looks fine and dandy, but it's weird to me that the STX F-150 has got a better looking grille, even though it's a trim level step down from the XLT. So if nothing else, Ford, on the Sport Appearance packages, help us get a little bit more color match on the grills. And speaking of color matched grills, since we didn't paint this one, TCcustoms actually added this Putco emblem, the Ford emblem in the front. It's really cool because at night, this whole Ford logo illuminates at night, and it adds that extra level of touch without having to go in and completely repaint that front end. Next up, let's talk about wheels, tires, and suspension. First off, we got a set of 35-inch Nitto Ridge grapplers. We've got a set of fuel trigger wheels that are finished in powder white. It looks fantastic. I will say, when I first saw the picture of this thing, I was like, those wheels, what? And I'll tell you, after I've seen it and actually had a chance to look at it, it matches the paint on the rest of the truck really, really close, and it's kind of cool. It's got a little retro vibe to it, if you will. So I'm actually pretty pleased with how those wheels and tires came out. But let's talk about the suspension. This one does have a 6-inch BDS lift kit, and that's where I'm hoping the 24 model can maybe give us a little bit of relief. As you know, TCcustoms, our sister company, customizes trucks. We do all kinds of lift kits all over the nation, and people come down to see us just to get their vehicles lifted. The only problem with current lift kits, whether it's BDS or FabTech or you name it, every single brand, you have to do a permanent modification to the frame to do a 4 or a 6-inch lift kit on these new F-150s. And the reason for it is because of that front differential. To be able to drop that differential down to make sure that you're keeping all the correct steering and suspension geometry, you actually have to cut a piece of the frame tab, a pig's ear, if you will, cutting the ear off of that frame to make sure you can move that down. It would be awesome if we could give the customer the ability to return it to stock if that's something they want, but you can't do it in the current generation. Another area for improvement on the 24 F-150 would be this badge emblem. I think it looks fine, but it feels like it's getting a little bit dated, and let me tell you why I feel that way. When you compare this to something like the Ford F-150 Lightning, it's got a really cool, which I know it's because you've got a charge port behind that emblem, but you've got that built into either side, and it almost looks like a next generation, if you will. You know, the new Super Duty's got a brand new badge that runs the entire length of the body itself, and I think it actually looks really, really cool, especially after seeing it in person. I just feel like this is a little bit an outdated design, and I really started thinking about this when we were going in and we were doing some badge modifiers to update the TCcustoms vehicles to show the TCcustoms F-150 and to get this chrome out of here, and it got me thinking this is a great opportunity for Ford to improve the next generation of the F-150. It is 2023 and we're still getting antennas from 1963. Now let's talk about my hopes for the rear end of this next generation F-150. For a little bit of context, I'm also an owner of an F-150 Lightning, and I love the independent rear suspension on that vehicle as far as a daily driver's concerned. It handles bumps really good, it doesn't get unsettled, and having that independent rear suspension where each wheel can move independently versus where you have a solid rear axle, it really does improve the road handling abilities. The downside of if this new generation gets an independent rear suspension like the Lightning is the cost to lift one is going to be astronomical, because you're going to have to relocate everything in the rear just like you did in the front. And by the way, the lift kit, the cost of these BDS and FabTech lift kits, most of that cost is tied up in the suspension in the front end. So it would not surprise me if the cost of these lift kits and the cost of labor doubles if we go with an independent rear suspension. But if you're one of those people that's not gonna lift it, you might wanna root for that independent rear. And by the way, while we're back here, take a look at this MBRP exhaust that we added to the vehicle. It sounds fantastic. Let's go ahead and have a listen. That exhaust sound brings me to my next one. Lordy, 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 please don't take away the 5.0 from the F-150. I think that's one of the things that a lot of your American, red-blooded American customers want, is they want that 5.0, even if it's got less horsepower. It you know, doesn't make as much power and torque, or it doesn't even tow as much. I think having that sound goes a long, long way. This next requested feature, I feel like it's gonna happen. I really, really do. And that is gonna be a feature that came directly off this next generation Super Duty. And the beautiful thing about that truck is if you drop the tailgate on the vehicle, there are going to be parking sensors that are built into the tops of the tailgate. And the idea of this is if you've got a load of wood in the bed of the truck and you've got that tailgate down and you're still wanting to back into a parking space, guess what? You can still know how far away you are from something with those backup sensors based on this right here. So I think that's a really cool setup. And in addition to that, it would be awesome if this next generation F-150 would also have a backup camera built into the tailgate somewhere as well. So that way, when you're backing up with the tailgate down, you're not staring at the ground like you are in the current generation. If you can see a theme already, that's because Ford trickles down a lot of the technology they develop in one vehicle and apply it to other vehicles as well. So for instance, the 23 Super Duty has got these big steps that are molded into the bed of the vehicle. So that way you can get in and out of the bed of the truck located right here. The other thing is you've got another set of those steps that are located right here. It would be awesome to have that as an available option, but what I've noticed from my customers is that everybody's either polar opposite. They either really love that feature or really hate it. And so I would think that a really good option for that is to do something that this truck doesn't have equipped on it, but can be added very simply, very inexpensively, is going to be an AMP Research, has got a deployable step. You basically push it down and then you can step your foot right there. It comes down a little bit lower than what it does on the Super Duty, and you can still get in and out of the bed of the truck. Also, don't forget, you still have your tailgate step built into the top of the tailgate. And since we're here talking about that, I've had a couple of people notice and mention that these steps are not down far enough, especially when you've got a truck that's 6-inch lifted like this. I mean, I'm 6'3", and you can see how high up my knee is compared to the rest. If I'm a 60-year-old man and I want a lifted truck, this tailgate step is useless. Just like the front, we have a rear Putco emblem, and I think it looks fantastic when it's illuminated at night. The Sync 4 system in the current generation F-150 is fantastic. You've got up to a 12-inch diagonal screen, and it allows for a couple of different things. You've got picture in a picture, so you can see where you are navigation-wise, but you can also have a sub-menu over here to identify what songs you're listening to, what radio station, or you have a plethora of different things that you can choose from without interrupting what you've got going on with the main screen. Ford did a heck of a job with this system. However, I will bet you, whether you like it or not, the Sync 4A system is coming. You know, if you don't know what that is, that's that big vertical screen that is found in the F-150 Lightning. I don't think Ford would go through all of that engineering to put it in the F-150 Lightning and not have it trickle down into the upper trim levels of the F-150 for next generation. And by the way, that's a perfectly good thing with me because that system has been fantastic. My Lightning, as well as all of these F-150s, have over-the-air updates available, and they're constantly pushing out new updates for that setup. In fact, I just got through with an update on mine that allows me to have a completely different user interface and allows you for easier access to the things that you need and use the most. And so I'm really excited to see what that vertical screen is. Now, here's the reason I really believe that's going to be the way that it is because reducing the number of buttons that you have here will actually save the manufacturer some money. versus having to have lots of different vehicles with lots of different styles of buttons to make it unique. Instead, you can just throw a software update and have it unique however you want it. I'd also be very curious to see if that reduces the number of microchips needed to build a specific F-150. As I'm moving the truck around, one thing I would love to see is a heads-up display on the new F-150. I believe this is also a feature that is found in the new generation of Super Duty, and I would love to be able to see the most important relevant information right in your line of sight without having to take your eyes off the road. To me, that is critical. Let's talk about engine choices. So Ford has really got a strong lineup of engine choices available for the current generation F-150. As we've already mentioned, this one's got the 5.0 V8. But I think there's going to be a really good opportunity in the near future for an electrified version of this. So as you know, we currently have got all those engines that you see right there on the screen. But I want to point out one that I think could use a little bit of enhancement, and that is going to be the Power Boost Hybrid. So as you know, that engine is currently a normal hybrid, meaning you put gas in the vehicle, it uses regenerative braking and other means to charge up the battery, and that will get you extra range and get you better fuel economy in your vehicle. However, I think there's a way to enhance that by going with a plug-in hybrid. So I love my F-150 Lightning, but range anxiety is still kind of a real thing, even though I'm 11,000 miles in on driving that truck. And I think what would be a good solution for all of that is to be able to plug it in and do your daily small, short commute simply by plugging it in at home or at work. And then when you're on a long trip and you run out of electricity, guess what? It just switches over to gasoline and you can just keep boogieing. I think that would be a huge option. Now, keep in mind that this technology is already existing in the Ford vehicles. Like, for instance, the Ford Escape plug-in hybrid. We've got a salesperson here that has one of those, and he got 1,200 miles on his last tank of fuel. If you look on some of those forums out there, there are some people driving that Escape plug-in hybrid that are having to put fuel stabilizer in their tank because it uses primarily electricity, and they almost never have to jump into the gasoline. I think that is going to be the best way to get so many more people that are wanting to buy an electrified truck but can't justify going cold turkey into it. Give us a plug-in hybrid option on this next generation F-150. Next up, let's talk about Bluecruise. If you're not aware, Bluecruise is a technology that allows you to drive completely hands and feet free on certain sections of divided road. Think of it as a very low autonomous driving system in the F-150. I've got it in my F-150 Lightning and I love that feature. That is the main reason I am holding on to that truck for dear life, is because of Bluecruise. What I think would be awesome to see in this next generation of the F-150 would be a version 2.0 of Bluecruise, if you will. So the Mach-E has got a new version of Bluecruise that you hit the blinker and it will change lanes for you. I think that is fantastic. But the main thing that I think Ford can improve on, because Bluecruise is currently in the normal F-150 from 21 to 23. However, you've got to get a loaded up truck to get that option. I think Ford would sell the stew out of those things if they would give that as an expensive, more expensive option on a lower trimmed vehicle. So think of it this way. If you're an executive or you're buying a vehicle for your fleet, for your team to be driving around, and you buy them a work truck with Bluecruise on it, guess what? They're not sitting there trying to drive with their knee while they're eating a cheeseburger on the road. They can just, you know what, let the truck drive itself on the interstate. They can eat their cheeseburger and not have to worry about swerving all over the place. I think it would be a good application in certain situations to give us Bluecruise in lower trim level F-150s. Don't make that an exclusive for Lariats, Platinums, and King Ranches. Trickle that technology down to the lower trim levels, please. And those are our hopes for the next generation F-150. If you found any value or completely disagree with anything I said, hit those up in the comments down below. And by the way, we are a dealership in Alabama that we never ask you to buy anything. That's not our point and purpose, is to sell you anything in these videos. We simply want to help you, inform you, and entertain you a little bit. But if you're wanting to help us some, you actually can do us a really big favor, and that's going to be subscribe to the channel with the bell notification turned on so you don't miss a single video. Peace.